Hello, it's Pete's Cameraman and Jack from BAM, and it's Saturday night at 12:30, and you've just taken possession of the railway line, and we've got a huge crane behind us. So what's going to be happening tonight?
So we are starting the footbridge install tonight.
Okay.
So like you just mentioned, we've just taken possession of the track, so there's no trains running until about 8 o'clock in the morning now.
Okay.
That gives us access onto the track and to work around the track and to lift over the track, which is obviously what we need to do to install the structure.
Yeah.
So we're starting on the seaward side, just because that's where we've been progressing with the lift shaft foundations.
Yeah.
At the quicker side, rather than the landward side.
Yeah.
Landward side should be ready in about a week and a half, and we'll start landing units over there as well. So tonight we're landing the first 2 lift shaft sections.
Yeah.
That's basically the housing for the new lift, and that'll take the kind of lift tower, the lift up and down the tower there.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the staircase coming off the side of it. We can only install 2 of those because we need to partially build the shield wall before we land the 3rd lift shaft section on, which has a small cantilever, which is where the new bridge deck will sit on. But before we can land the 3rd lift shaft section, the shield wall has to go underneath it.
Okay.
So we've got the 500-ton crane in the background. That has been rigging up prior to possession. The 500-ton crane isn't fully rigged, so it's not actually 500 ton at the moment. They don't. If you're not lifting to the full capacity of the crane, you can take weight off the back of the crane basically.
Okay.
So the crane doesn't come fully assembled. It comes in pieces.
Yeah.
The main arm that you can see now that is just extending out to the right radius. That comes as a telescopic boom, so that just goes in and out.
Yeah.
And then the ballast that you see on the back, that comes on and off the crane.
Okay.
And the ballast is basically the big steel weights, basically.
Yeah.
So on the back of that, it can take 165 ton of ballast. We've got 105 ton on at the moment.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's just rigging up and getting the mast set. Once that's set, then we'll start lifting and taking some materials off the seaward side platform first. And then I'll call the lift shaft sections down. So the lift shaft sections themselves, they've come over from Ireland again. Yeah. We've got a slightly different finish on the lift shaft units. That's come through the planning officer again. It's like a curtain defect, which you'll see when the lift shaft unit comes down. They're currently on a wagon up at our compound in 1Ls. Okay. And then we just call them down on a on-call basis. Right. They get offloaded from the back of the wagon with a crane, just because we've not got anything big enough up in the offices to offload them. The lift shaft units themselves are about 28 tons each for the first 2 lift shaft sections, and then I think the second one is around about 40 or 50. Sorry, the 3rd lift shaft section is around 40 or 50 tons, but that comes in a little later in time.
Okay.
So at the minute we've got the lift shaft units coming down from 1Ls. We've also got the RRV coming down from Dawlish Warren, because we're working down on Dawlish to Holcombe as well this weekend. So down in Dawlish to Holcombe we're carrying on with the D-Veg works in CBU 20 and CBU 21. The guys will be taking off about 20 or 30 ton of material that they've chopped down during the week, and loading that back onto the RRV and then taking that back down to Dawlish Warren. So that's going to be running back through the work site throughout the possession that we're in at the minute. So the 500-ton crane comes with the steel mats that you can see in front of us. The steel mats then are put on top of 3 timber bog mats, and they're used to distribute the load of the crane into the ground, basically.
Right.
So we have a temporary works design done, and then there's a temporary works coordinator. I sign the platform off as fit for use at the start of the shift. Yeah. So I make sure the mats have been put down in accordance with the temporary works design, and then the steel mats go on top of that then, and then once I've signed it off, that allows the crane to start lifting then. Yeah. The crane itself, you've got the crane operator from Ainsco. You've got 2 slinger signallers, one on either side, so we haven't got to keep coming back over. Okay. And they're passing the load to each other.
And they're in contact with the
operator all the time. And then you've got the AP, which for this site is myself, and they are review and sign off all the lift plans. Yeah. This is a contract lift, so the lift supervisor is also from Ainsco. Yeah. You can see the 2 gentlemen stood over there. That's the lift supervisor on the right hand side, and then all the slinger signallers on the left hand side then. Yeah. Ainsco come with all their own lifting gear, so they've got various different size strops, different lengths, different shackles, all rated for different weight capacities dependent on the lift that we're doing. Yeah. You obviously don't need like a 20-ton set of chains to lift a 2-ton item. You can get away with smaller lifting kit really. So all the lifting kit, that goes through its record of thorough examination. The crane has a 12-month check as well, and that has a record of thorough examination as well.
Yeah.
And then the crane can't actually operate without having that, so that's part of the stuff that we check when we're reviewing the lift plan, to make sure all the documentation for the lift and accessories is in place, and all the documentation for the crane itself.
Okay.
The first lift shaft section has just come down, so if you want to, we'll have a shoot around there, we can have a look at that, and I can show you the finish on the lift shaft sections and how that'll look.
Brilliant.
So the lift shafts have I think it's a Reckley Hawaii this is. So it's almost like a kind of curtain sort of ribbon effect, very soft, very gentle.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go, a bit more light from the drive there. You can really see the finish on it now.
Yeah.
The cutout that you can see on the front side here, that will be where the lift door goes, so what opens and closes.
Okay.
And this is for the control panel for where you click the button.
Oh wow.
For the lift. So the holes and the inserts that you can see in the back, that's for to run the cable in and out of.
Yeah.
On top of this then, there's 4 lifters. So we use wire strops, or wire ropes should I say, for these. So they basically screw into the lift shaft section on the top.
Yeah.
Screws in, and then you attach your lifting chain onto the top of that then, or your lifting hook onto the top of that.
Okay.
And that's what picks the unit up. So there's 4 of those to go
4
in.
of those, right, on each corner.
Yep. There's 27 holes in each lift shaft section, which go down from the top to the bottom. If you look underneath here, you can see some of the holes.
Oh yeah.
So these are called well voids. What they are used for is basically just to form a void that goes all the way up to the top. And then each lift shaft section is held down with 27 40mm bars down into the pile cap which we've built over there.
Right.
So when we go around the other side in a moment, I can show you the pile cap and the bars that have been put in. And the bars, we put couplers on, or connectors on, and connect the bars, and the bars run from full length of the lift shaft, so they go right away from the foundation that we've built, and they go right to the top of the roof and tie the roof slab onto it, and that's basically what protects the wall in the 1 in 100 year storm event.
So that ain't moving anywhere?
Definitely not, no, definitely not, no. So we're just finishing off a few generic lifts to begin with, so we're just cleaning up the area over there because we've been building the lift pit. We're removing any redundant reinforcement that we haven't been able to get into there, and we're removing all the shuttering equipment which we've been using to build the lift shaft.
Yeah.
Once we've got rid of all the last of the materials, the first lift is this lift shaft section behind us, and we'll crack on with that straight away. So probably about another 30 minutes or so we'll be lifting the first lift shaft unit.
Okay, wow. So how many lift shaft units are going in tonight?
Only 2.
Okay.
So there's a sequence in how we have to build this bridge.
Yeah.
So the third lift shaft section has a cantilever which sticks out the side of it.
Yeah.
And the cantilever rests on walls which aren't yet built.
Right.
So we can only install 2 lift shaft sections on that side.
Okay.
And then we have to put the walls in adjacent to the lift shaft. And then when we land the third section, it sits on top of the walls. So,
right. Okay.
it also, the third lift shaft section on the seaward side also sits on top of the shield wall. When I say shield wall, it's basically like a big concrete wall in front of the staircase.
Right.
And that protects the staircase from storm loading as well.
Okay.
In 1 in 100 year storm event. So you can see the back of the crane here now. That's the ballast that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So that's the big steel plates that you can see there. They get taken off by the crane. So this particular crane doesn't come with a rigging crane. So some cranes, when you start going above 500 tonning cranes, really, some cranes come with rigging cranes. So the crane has to be built by a smaller crane. It can't assemble itself. But with this one, basically what happens is when he turns around the other side, there's some like hydraulic jacks or hydraulic rams which lower all those weights.
Right. Okay.
So he lowers the weight. He lowers the weights, takes the pins off, and drops all the weight, and then he can turn around then himself.
Okay.
And then he can pick up the weights that go on the back of the crane, and then that's how that crane rigs up.
Very clever.
So if you're sticking around towards the end of the possession, you might be able to see it de-rigging.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was rigged up prior to you getting here today.
Yeah. They've done it very quickly.
Yeah, very, very quickly. Rigging and de-rigging of this crane takes about an hour and a half.
Okay.
About an hour and a half to 2 hours maybe.
Okay.
And it comes on 3, all of the ballast comes on 3 wagons.
Right.
And then once the ballast is removed off the crane, it can then drive on the road then.
Okay.
The reason why it doesn't come with all the ballast on is because it takes you over the weight limit to drive on UK roads.
Right. Okay.
Also, as well, there's a certain amount of weight per axle.
Yeah.
To adhere with the highway standards that the crane can drive around with. If you were to drive around with all that on, it would be massively open. To be honest with you, I think the wheels would fall off it if it took the outriggers off it now.
Wow.
So you can see the crane's basically the biggest crane we can get in the car park, and it's the same size and same and takes up the same area as the 450-ton crane, and that's what's needed to lift the lift shaft sections in the bridge unit.
Right, okay.
So the lift shaft sections, we're lifting those at about a 31.2 metre radius tonight.
Yeah.
And they're about 28 tonnes, and we're lifting at about 80% capacity of the crane, that size crane with 105 tonne of ballast on.
Okay.
Like I mentioned earlier, we've not got the full ballast that crane can take on.
No.
We've only got 105 tonne and not the 165 tonne.
Yeah. And it could still see it can extend quite a lot longer.
Oh yeah, massive amounts. He's only got like 3 sections extended at the moment. There's another 2 that you can see just in there, or possibly all 3 actually.
There's 3 by the looks of it, yeah.
Trainsco are split up into, they have the heavy cranes division and the smaller cranes division. So when I say smaller cranes, like your 150 tonnes, what we use to lift over the excavator.
Yeah.
These sort of size cranes come under the Haynes Coast Heavy Division, and we book and plan the crane for each weekend depending on the lifts what we're doing. So for the next sort of 2 or 3 months while we're installing the structure, we will vary between crane sizes of 150 tonne to 250 tonne, potentially a 300 tonne, and then up to the 450/500 depending on the availability of the crane.
Okay.
So it was meant to be a 450 tonne crane for this weekend. But like I mentioned earlier, we had a few problems. Well, the crane broke down yesterday, so they swapped it out to the 500-tonne crane. And we get sent over like a new lift plan and new drawings to show all the new weights that we're working to and how much ballast we need. And then we just have to do a check for the temporary works then. And in this case, the outrigger loadings, because we've got 65 tonne of ballast which isn't on, and less than the 450 tonne crane.
Okay. It's a lot quieter than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's not a noisy thing, to be honest. So we've got loads of other things going on in the background. Obviously we've got wagons being moved up and down from the yard, bringing the precast down. Yeah. We've got Dawlish to Holcombe, which we had the RRV moving past us at the start of the possession. Yeah. They're felling trees and getting all the trees off the cliffs and any kind of cleared vegetation that they removed in the week. So
possession's just for one night this weekend, is it?
Yeah. We've only got the remainder of this year. There isn't any abnormal possessions planned at the moment. Okay. There's only Saturday night rules of the routes, and I think Morgan Sindles do use some midweek ones, but there's just not enough time in the midweek ones for us to really do anything productive with. we've got the landward side pile cap over here at the moment. All of the steel isn't completely fixed. We've only fixed enough to get the base poured. So we do it in we pour this in 3 stages. We poured the base Thursday last week, and then we filled around the edge with concrete as well. We install the rest of the steel then and pour the walls up to the lower level that you can see here. And then there's a bit more steel to go in around the perimeter there, and that'll form the shape of the lift shaft, which is the same shape as what's on the wagon behind us.
Okay.
And then that sits on top there, and you've got the pit there. That's for the kind of hydraulics and the motors to sit in.
Yeah. Impressive.
Once we get to the top of that base there, we infill around the side again. We put polythene up against the sheet piles, and then that allows us to remove the top brace, which is around this cofferdam here, this big steel beam that you can see in front of us and on the right hand side. And once we've removed that, then we'll start pulling the sheet piles, but we have to fill back up to the level that we're stood on at the moment.
Right, okay.
And then that'll allow us to reinstate the platform edge then as well. On the right hand side here, we've been finishing off, we've been underpinning the platforms, because we've not put any sheet piles down that edge, so we've been underpinning the platforms, which is all the kind of concrete that you can see underneath.
Yeah.
All of this reinforcements to go into that lift pit, so that'll get installed next week, and then we start installing the reinforcement in here then, and that will be for the stair foundation and the plant room walls. So on top of the foundation, there's 4 walls to build. One of the walls is to support the cantilever, the bridge section, which I was just talking about. Yeah. And then inside the 4 walls then will be the kind of lift motor room.
Oh, right, okay.
So we're now over at the seaward side lift pit. You can see where we've formed the top shape on here, which is where we land the lift shaft units onto. The bars that you can see here are 40mm GUI bars. These on top, this on top here is one of the couplers which I was talking about. So they just thread on and allow you to splice 2 bars together or join 2 bars together. Okay. There's 27 of them in total, and they go right the way from the bottom here into from the foundation right the way to the roof. So they go all the way up, and they get grouted in then as we fill. So there's about a 130mm diameter void, which is those well voids that I was talking about earlier. These couplers are about 60mm, so that gives us 70mm left of space, so it gives us 35mm of tolerance around the coupler. So basically, if the bar's in the wrong position, the lift shaft unit won't land on here. Right, okay. So you can see that if you just kind of come up with the camera over the top here, you can see the line of the, as you look down there, you can see the line of the bars and how much time we've spent getting all the kind of position and the verticality of these bars correct. Yeah. Because you can't really bend 40mm bars. But you struggle to be honest. The 5 little columns that you can see here, these are little universal columns. So they just sit inside of the little pocket there. Right. And on the top of each lift shaft unit is a little void which goes down, and you fill the hole and the pocket full of grout, and the column joins the 2 lift shaft sections together as well, and there to prevent shear. Okay. The copper tape that you can see on the end here, so on this corner and on the opposite corner over there, that copper tape there connects onto that bar that you can see on the end. Yeah. And what that does, there's an earthen rod that goes onto the end of there, and then when we've extended the bar all the way to the roof, there'll be some more copper tape that'll go all the way around the edge of the perimeter of the lift shaft. Okay. And there'll also be kind of like an antenna, a copper antenna on the roof. All right. And that's in the event that lightning strikes the tower. Okay. And there's an earthen connection then, which earths the energy, the electricity, down from the roof into the ground, into the earthen point in the ground. So it just protects all the mechanicals and everything. Yeah. The bar, the strip that you can see over there, just underneath the door sill, that's a halfing fixing. So there is one just above the ground there, which you can't really see, one there, and then there's 2 on the left-hand side, which are the lines that just need to be cleaned out a little bit. Yeah. And that's where the actual lift gets connected onto.
Okay.
So it's the steel bar that you can see there is stainless.
Yeah.
And it's filled with polystyrene on the inside, so it doesn't fill up with concrete.
Yeah.
And you rake the polystyrene out then, and it allows you to kind of hook and clip things onto.
Right, I'm with you.
And they house all the steel work which supports the actual lift and keeps the lift plumb inside of here.
Okay. Impressive.
See the guys in the background just removing some of the redundant steel off the wall,
Yeah.
clearing up a bit. And then, like I say, we'll get going in a couple of minutes' time.